In 2013, Leonardo DiCaprio stood on stage holding a Golden Globe for his role in The Wolf of Wall Street, a movie about one of the most notorious financial frauds in American history. But what nobody in that room knew was that the movie itself was being funded by an actual financial fraud, not just a few million. We are talking about $4.5 billion siphoned directly from an entire country's wealth fund. The mastermind wasn't a cartel boss or a seasoned Wall Street banker. It was a soft-spoken 20-something named Jho Low, who somehow managed to steal billions, throw the wildest parties in Hollywood history, and then completely vanish without a trace. Here is how he pulled off the heist of the century and why, for years, absolutely no one stopped him. Our story starts in 2009, in Malaysia. The government had just launched a sovereign wealth fund called 1MDB, or One Malaysia Development Berhad. The stated goal of this fund was incredibly noble: raise money to build infrastructure, create jobs, and eradicate poverty in Malaysia. To run a multi-billion-dollar fund, you would normally hire top-tier economists. Instead, the Prime Minister at the time, Najib Razak, brought in an unofficial advisor, a young, chubby socialite named Jho Low. Low had zero experience running a national economy, but he had one crucial skill. He was a master networker. He had gone to prestigious schools in the UK and the US, rubbing shoulders with the children of Middle Eastern royalty and global politicians, including the Malaysian Prime Minister's stepson Riza Aziz. Jho Low understood a psychological loophole that most criminals never figure out. If you walk into a bank asking for $1 million, they will scrutinize your entire life. But if you walk into a major prestigious Western institution representing a sovereign nation and you want to move billions of dollars, they don't ask questions. They just look at the massive fees they are going to make, and they rubber stamp it. Jho Low needed a key to unlock the global financial system, and he found it on Wall Street. Enter Goldman Sachs. To get the 1MDB fund off the ground, the country needed to raise capital. Goldman Sachs agreed to help 1MDB sell $6.5 billion worth of bonds to global investors. In return, Goldman Sachs pocketed an unbelievable $600 million in fees, far higher than the industry standard. So 1MDB now has billions sitting in its accounts. This is where Jho Low's genius and extreme audacity kicked in. He began diverting hundreds of millions of dollars out of the fund and into a shadowy network of offshore shell companies. His method was shockingly simple. He just used fake names that sounded like real, legitimate companies. For example, he set up a shell company in the British Virgin Islands called Blackstone Asia Real Estate Partners. When compliance officers at the bank saw money moving to Blackstone, they assumed it was the massive legitimate American private equity firm, Blackstone Group. They didn't look closely enough to realize it was just a fake bank account controlled entirely by Jho Low. Using this exact trick, wire transfer by wire transfer, Jho Low siphoned an estimated $4.5 billion out of the Malaysian Infrastructure Fund, washing it through banks in Switzerland, Singapore and New York until the money was effectively untraceable. Now, with billions in stolen cash burning a hole in his pocket, Jho Low did exactly what you would expect a 20-something billionaire to do. He went to Hollywood. What do you buy when you have $4.5 billion of stolen money? Everything. Jho Low bought a $250 million super yacht named Equanimity, complete with a helicopter pad and a transparent grand piano. He bought a $35 million Bombardier private jet. He bought real estate in Beverly Hills and Manhattan. He became the biggest spender the global nightclub scene had ever seen. He famously dropped millions in a single night at clubs in Vegas and Saint-Tropez. He bought a transparent acrylic piano for supermodel Miranda Kerr and gifted a $3.2 million Picasso painting to Leonardo DiCaprio. But his most ironic purchase was in the film industry. The Malaysian Prime Minister's stepson, Riza Aziz, had set up a Hollywood production company called Red Granite Pictures. Jho Low funneled $100 million of stolen 1MDB cash into Red Granite to fund a movie that every major studio had rejected as being too risky. That movie was The Wolf of Wall Street, a film detailing the rise and fall of a financial fraudster, paid for entirely by a financial fraudster. But you cannot steal $4.5 billion without leaving a paper trail. Investigative journalists, most notably Claire Rucastle-Brown of the Sarawak Report and reporters at the Wall Street Journal, began noticing massive discrepancies in 1MDB's public filings. The fund was drowning in debt and there was no infrastructure to show for it. In 2015, the story broke globally. The US Department of Justice launched its largest kleptocracy investigation in history. They traced the wire transfers, unmasked the shell companies, and began seizing assets. The super yacht was seized, the luxury condos were seized, even the Picasso given to DiCaprio and Marlon Brando's Oscar statuette, which was gifted to the production team, were surrendered to the FBI. The fallout was catastrophic. Goldman Sachs was forced to pay nearly $3 billion in penalties for their role in facilitating the fraud. The Malaysian Prime Minister, Najib Razak, was voted out of office in a historic election and eventually sentenced to 12 years in prison. But what about the mastermind? The man who pulled the strings, corrupted a global banking system, and partied with Hollywood's elite. Jho Low vanished. Today he remains an international fugitive, wanted by multiple countries and Interpol. He is widely believed to be living under the protection of the Chinese government in Macau, completely untouchable by Western law enforcement, sitting on a fortune that the world is still trying to find.